Hey chess players, welcome back to your chess coach. You know what I hear all the time from my students? Coach, I'm so scared when my opponent plays scholar's mate. And I get it. That queen coming to h5 early in the game, it feels dangerous, threatening, like you're about to get checkmated in 4 moves if you make one wrong step. But here's the truth. Scholar's mate is actually one of the worst openings your opponent can play against you. Once you learn the right defense, and trust me, it's not complicated, you'll actually start hoping your opponents try this trick on you. In my 15 years as a chess player and coach, I've taught this defense to hundreds of students, and every single one of them went from fearing scholar's mate to absolutely crushing anyone who tries it. So today, I'm going to show you exactly how to punish scholar's mate attempts, step by step. We'll cover the main lines, the traps to avoid, and some devastating counterattacks that will make your opponents regret bringing their queen out so early. Let's get into it. All right, the game starts normally. Your opponent plays a 4, which is the most common opening move in chess. You respond with e5, controlling the center and opening lines for your pieces. Solid, fundamental chess. And then he plays queen to h5. The queen comes storming out to h5 on the second move. Now, a lot of players, especially beginners, start to panic here. The queen is attacking your e5 pawn, and you can already see the scholar's mate threat forming if they get their bishop to c4. But here's what I tell my students. Don't panic. Defend calmly. The best move here is knight to c6. You're developing a piece and defending the e5 pawn. 2 tasks with 1 move. That's efficient chess. You're not rushing. You're not making desperate moves. You're just playing solid, principled chess. Now white continues with the plan. Bishop to c4. The bishop aims straight at f7, your weakest square. Combined with the queen on h5, white is threatening scholar's mate. If you play the natural-looking knight to f6 right now, attacking the queen, boom, queen takes f7 is checkmate. That's the trap. So what do? g6. This is the key move. You kick the queen away while defending f7. The scholar's mate threat is completely neutralized. And here's a beautiful detail. This move g6 also prepares to fianchetto your bishop to g7, where it'll be a monster on the long diagonal. After g6, white's queen has to retreat. The most common move is queen to f3, still eyeing f7 and putting pressure on your position. Now, and only now, you can play knight to f6. See the difference? Earlier, knight to f6 would have been checkmate, but now it's perfectly safe because g6 has defended f7. This is what I call move order matters. The same move can be brilliant or disastrous depending on when you play it. Here's where most players go wrong. Your opponent, frustrated that the scholar's mate didn't work, decides to keep attacking on the king side. The most aggressive continuation is g4. White is pushing the g-pawn, planning g5 to kick your knight away and continue the attack. And if you play the natural developing move, bishop to g7, which looks so good, completing your fianchetto, you walk right into the trap. g5 kicks your knight. Where does it go? Nowhere good. And guess what? White plays queen takes f7 checkmate. So here's the million-dollar question. How do you deal with white's flank attack? The answer? You punish the flank attack through the center. Knight to d4. This is the key pattern I teach all my students. When your opponent attacks on the flank, you strike in the center. It's one of the fundamental principles of chess, and it works beautifully here. With knight to d4, you're attacking white's queen and threatening a devastating fork on c2. The queen has to move, and suddenly your pieces are dominating the center while white's kingside pawns look silly and overextended. Most players will retreat with queen to d1, getting the queen to safety. Now here's where I see a lot of students and even intermediate players go wrong. They play the slow move d6, thinking they're being solid and developing. And d6 looks reasonable. It supports the center, opens the bishop's diagonal, but there's something much stronger, something faster, something that really punishes white for violating opening principles. Instead of d6, you should play d5. Why is this so much better? Because it's active. You're not just developing, you're attacking. You're hitting white's bishop on c4 and claiming space in the center. White has to react immediately. The difference is crucial. After d6, white can play c3, kick your knight, and consolidate. But after d5, white is already on the defensive. If they take with e takes d5, you continue with bishop takes g4, and now you're winning back the pawn on g4 with tempo because you're developing your bishop. This is the difference between reactive chess and proactive chess. d6 is passive, d5 is powerful. All right, let's see what happens when white takes the center pawn. After e takes d5, then bishop takes g4, you've equalized material and your pieces are swarming. White needs to develop, so they play knight to e2, trying to bring pieces into the game and defend. And now comes my favorite part of this entire variation. You have a forced checkmate sequence that's absolutely gorgeous. Knight to f3 check. The knight comes to f3 with check. Beautiful centralization, beautiful timing. The white king is forced to move to king to f1. It's the only legal move since the knight is giving check. And now, can you find the checkmate in one? Bishop to h3 checkmate. Checkmate. The bishop delivers the final blow on h3. The king is trapped. The knight on f3 controls the escape squares. It's a clean, forcing checkmate pattern that's incredibly satisfying to deliver. When I show this to my students, their eyes light up. They go from being scared of scholar's mate to actually hoping their opponents try it because they know they have this beautiful checkmate in their pocket. Now, your opponent might not be silly enough to walk into that immediate checkmate. More commonly, after e takes d5, then bishop takes g4, white will try f3 instead of knight to e2. This looks more solid. White is attacking your bishop and trying to hold the position together. But here's the nasty trick that most players miss. Knight to e4. This move is devastating. Why? Because of the pin. Your bishop on g4 is pinning white's f3 pawn to their queen on d1. That means the pawn cannot capture your knight. At the same time, you're opening up the diagonal for your queen to come to h4 with check. Everything is coordinated, everything is forcing. White will continue with f takes g4. White has to take the bishop, then queen to h4 check, then king to f1, only move. Then queen to f2 checkmate. Checkmate again. Ironically, white gets mated by the exact same pattern they were trying to deliver to you. The queen infiltrates on f2, the king has no escape. Game over. Now, not every opponent will play g4 immediately. Some players know that's too reckless. Let's look at more solid tries for white. After queen to f3, then knight to f6, white should prevent knight to d4 with either knight to e2 or c3. Both moves stop your knight from jumping to d4 and forking. Let's look at the better option first, knight to e2. Why is knight to e2 better than c3? Because it develops a piece, prepares castling, and guards d4. It's a multi-purpose move. White is trying to play more solidly while still maintaining pressure. Here I recommend bishop to g7, completing your fianchetto and getting your bishop onto that powerful long diagonal. White usually continues with d3, supporting the center and preparing to develop the light-squared bishop. And now you should castle kingside, castling your king to safety. This is important. You're not rushing to attack. You're developing sensibly, getting your king safe, and only then looking for tactics. The most common continuation is knight on b1 to c3, developing the knight to its natural square. But here's where a lot of lower-rated players make a mistake. They play bishop to g5, pinning your knight on f6. And this is actually a mistake because you have h6, forcing white to make a decision about the bishop. If bishop takes f6, you recapture. Either with the bishop or the queen, both are fine, and you've won the bishop pair. That's a long-term advantage. More commonly, white retreats to bishop to h4, trying to maintain the pin. But now you have g5, trapping the bishop. It has to go to bishop to g3, and now comes the powerful central strike we've been setting up. d5. There it is again. That d5 pawn break. It's the theme of this entire defense. Every time white tries something on the flanks, you answer in the center with d5. After e takes d5, you don't immediately recapture. Instead, you have the intermediate move bishop to g4, attacking the queen. This is what chess players call an in-between move, or Zwischenzug in German. Before dealing with the pawn on d5, you create an immediate threat. The queen has no good square. If it moves anywhere, it stops defending d5, and you can recapture the pawn. White usually plays queen to e3, and now you have a choice. You can simply recapture knight takes d5, Or you can play the sharper knight to d4, threatening the massive fork on c2. Let's say you go for knight to d4. White takes knight takes d4, then e takes d4, and then queen takes d4. Now you're down 2 pawns. But, and this is crucial, your position is much better. Why? Look at your pieces, fully developed, active, coordinated. Look at White's king, still in the center, vulnerable. Your bishop on g7 is x-raying White's queen. You have rook to e8 check, and White's king is in serious danger. After rook to e8 check, White has 2 options and both are terrible. If king to d2, you have a beautiful discovered check coming. Your knight on f6 can move to e4 with check, and when it does, your bishop on g7 delivers a discovered attack. The queen on d4 is hanging, and White is completely lost. But if White tries king to f1 instead, thinking the king will be safer there, you have bishop to a 2 check. This bishop move is devastating. The king is forced to king to g1, and now you play knight to h5. Look at this position. The real threat here is bishop takes d4, capturing White's queen with your bishop from g7. White's queen is completely trapped and has nowhere to go, so White desperately tries queen to c5 to save the queen. But now you have the crushing bishop takes b2, and here's the beautiful point. You're not just winning the b2 pawn. On the next move, you're winning the rook. This is the kind of dynamic compensation that separates players who just count material from players who understand chess. Sometimes being down pawns doesn't matter if your pieces are dominating. Let's rewind to another common try. After queen to f3, then knight to f6, instead of playing slow moves, White might try queen to b3, going after f7 one more time. The natural response queen to e7 leads to an equal position. You're defending f7, you're not worse, but you're not better either. And here's my coaching philosophy. If your opponent makes a mistake in the opening, bringing the queen out too early, violating principles, you shouldn't be satisfied with equality. You should punish them. So instead of queen to e7, let's play knight to d4. Again, this is becoming a pattern, right? Every time White creates flank pressure, we answer with this central knight jump. Now it looks like you're hanging the f7 pawn. White can take bishop takes f7 check, right? Yes, but after king to a7, White is actually in trouble. The king looks exposed in the center, but look at what you're threatening. The queen on b3 is under attack. The c2 square is under attack from the knight. The bishop on f7 is attacked by your king. White has to deal with all 3 threats simultaneously. The only move that defends everything is queen to c4. The queen protects the bishop, covers c2, and stays active. But White's position is hanging by a thread. Everything depends on that one square, c4. If we can kick the queen away from there, White's entire position collapses. Find the winning move. The answer is b5. This flank attack is devastating because it takes away the only square where White's queen could hold everything together. If queen to c5 check, checking you to buy time, you simply play king takes f7, winning the bishop, and White's position collapses. This is the beauty of active defense. You're not just surviving, you're taking over the game. Now let me show you something that catches a lot of intermediate players off guard. Some opponents won't play queen to h5 on move 2. They're a bit more sophisticated. They play bishop to c4, then knight to c6, then queen to f3, bringing the queen to f3 instead of h5. What's the difference? When the queen goes to h5, you get free tempo with g6, developing your bishop. When the queen goes to f3, White is trying to keep more pressure while avoiding giving you free development. You should still play knight to f6. And now if White plays c3, setting up d4, you have d5. This d5 push is incredibly strong. At first glance, it looks like you're hanging the pawn. It's attacked 3 times and only defended twice, right? But there's a hidden tactical resource. After e takes d5, you play e4, attacking the queen and cutting off the defense of the d5 pawn. Then queen to g3, White has to move the queen, and you recapture knight takes d5. And here's the beautiful part. If White tries queen to e3 instead of queen to g3, defending everything and preparing to consolidate, you have knight to a5. This knight move is incredibly powerful. It attacks the bishop on c4, and opens up a potential check on d3 that would expose white's king. If white tries bishop to b5 check to keep the bishop, you trade bishop to d7, then bishop takes d7 check, then queen takes d7, and you're better. Your knight is dominating on a5, white's king is stuck in the center, and the d3 check is always hanging over white's head. This is another pattern to remember. When you can't play knight to d4, look for knight to e5 instead. Central knight outposts are incredibly powerful. Finally, let's look at what happens when white plays c3 instead of knight to e2 after the main line. The setup is similar. Queen to f3, then knight to f6, then c3, then bishop to g7, then d3, then castle kingside. Again, if white tries the pin with bishop to g5, you answer h6, and after bishop to h4, then g5, then bishop to g3, you play the key move, d5. After e takes d5, you play bishop to g4. Again, same intermediate move, same idea. The difference here is that after queen to e3, then knight takes d5. Even if black captures your knight, you recapture with queen. And here engine shows +3 advantage for black. Because you're ahead in development, you have the bishop pair, white's king is in the center, your pieces are more active. The key lesson? Even when white plays more accurately, you're never worse in these positions. At worst, you're equal. More often, you're better. And that's it. You now know how to crush a scholar's mate. Go try this defense in your next game. When you crush your first scholar's mate attempt, drop a comment and let me know. If this helped you, hit that like button and subscribe for more chess coaching content. Now go out there and punish some scholar's mates. See you next time.